Welcome, everyone. This session is Mainstream Smart Home Technologies for People with Physical Disabilities, session number IC45. My name is Vince Giap, and I'll be moderating for today's session. I'll provide the CU code at the end of the session, so keep an eye out for that in the chat box, and then I'll also announce it as well. Before we get started, please remember to mute yourself. Questions can be asked through the chat feature, in which the presenters will be able to address throughout the session. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our speakers, Dan Ding, Lindsey Morris, and Alex Oriot for your session today. So I'll turn it over. Thank you.
Thank you, Vince. Welcome everyone to our session. So this is an educational session. Basically, our intention for the session is kind of teach a little bit more about basics of mainstream smart home technology, what we learned from our research project. And we have three presenters today, like Vince mentioned. Myself, my name is Dan Ding, go by Didi. I'm a faculty in the Department of Rehabilitation Science and Technology at Pitt. And I'll ask my co-presenters to introduce themselves as their turn comes up. So we don't have anything to disclose, but we'd like to acknowledge the funding source for our research project, which I will talk a little bit more. This that can actually make the smart home technology like usable, more usable, user-friendly for people with physical disabilities, and also identify two resources and that can be utilized to determine the compatibility of these mainstream technology, and also identify these environmental factors to consider when we selected a mainstream smart home technology for people with disabilities. And here's our outline, and I'd like to start with some background information, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about the three components of the smart home system, starting with the smart home processors, and then I will pass the presentation to my colleague Lindsey Morris to talk about input devices, and then my colleague Alex to talk about output devices, and also the device usability and benchmarking work we have done. Because the ISS has been pushed several times, 2 times, I think. And so the presentation is really about some basic works that we learned, and we have made more progress since then. And so hopefully we can report back next year. And so this is, I want to start up with talking about the trend of mainstream smart home technology. I think everybody here probably have experienced this exploding of technology on the market in the smart home world. And it definitely has a lot of potentials, and according to a lot of projections, these technology will continue to grow over the next few years, and basically getting into our household more readily available and more affordable, and hopefully more user-friendly as well. And this technology holds a great potential to be used as assistive technology, especially supporting environmental control and kind of function like the environmental control unit that we used in the past. And also support more than that, and also support communication, like community participation, other kind of like all dimensions of the quality of life. And so the pros, like I mentioned, is really readily available. You can easily buy it anywhere, Amazon, any kind of like Best Buy stores, and affordable. They're getting cheaper, and wide variety. So there's every day, and there's new technology like appears in the market. And with the recent CES, we see a lot of new product as well. And it's versatile because they are not really just supporting environmental control. Like I mentioned, like the smart speaker could support communication, support a lot of information seeking, and different kind of like IADL as well. And they can be really smart. I mean, if you talk about these technology, people probably don't use it in a smart way, but they can be smart based on sensors feedback, and you get to know what's happening, and based on what's happening, you can kind of automatically program these devices to respond. And so that's the pro side. But on the con side, in these technology, they're mainstream, so they're not really designed for people with disability. So the accessibility, usability, especially their integration with existing AT, such as those AAC devices, are not really considered. And currently, there's really no good standard protocol or universal compatibility between the products, but this might be changing with an emerging like standard. I'll talk a little bit about that in the presentation. And this wide variety could be a con, and meanwhile, because there are a lot of choices a lot of choices is actually can confuse people and which one I should choose and for my needs. And that's becoming like an uncertainty whenever you have too many choices. And the most important thing is there's really no delivery process for this kind of technology. In the AT world, we have a good delivery process that involves the clinicians, suppliers, and manufacturer representatives. But in the mainstream world, it's really hard to find all the pieces together. And so it's really, we have to do it on our own at this moment. But the funding policy side, especially on the Medicaid side, is kind of changing with the home and community-based services. So maybe down the road, that will be some changes as well in terms of using mainstream technology SAT. There are not a lot of evidence out there about the impact of this technology. We heard a lot of anecdotal stories and videos from individual users and also from these mainstream companies and using people with disability as and examples to showcase the technology. But there's really lack of empirical research about how to deliver these technology SAT, and especially on the details on each steps, like how we can assess their needs, how we can select the technology, customize the technology based on people's needs, and how we can train people to effectively use the technology, and then funding, how we can help people to acquire the technology. And there's also limited research regarding evaluating the impact of this technology. So I want to provide some current research, the most recent research. There are not a lot, and these are very limited, a set of research that we're able to find regarding the mainstream smart home technology. And from the 2020 scoping review that discovered some 21 evaluative studies, but most of them are still on the ECUs, not the mainstream. But the conclusion is, in addition to the technology, there's a need to support the planning, assessment, equipment trials, modifications, and initial and ongoing training with this technology. And also, there's a report from an MOT student on projects and surveyed on OTs and OT assistants in the field. And they identify the barriers related to funding, education, and availability of devices. And a 2021 paper is described a pilot study, two OTs conducted with ALS patients. And in addition to the technology, their conclusion is also with support and training, this technology can really benefit the individuals they are serving. And the last one is a dissertation is conducted by an SLP, and she primarily looked into smart home technology used for people who use AACs. And again, the conclusion is independence takes more than out-of-the-box solutions. So basically, you can't really just buy it and use it. There's a lot of tweaking, especially with the AAC devices, and not involve a lot of setup and configuration in order to interface these technology with the smart home technology. And we have also, our group had also conducted during the pandemic, we did a professional interview study with practitioners in the field who provide these services at different settings, and including OT, PT, ATPs, and also state AT programs, and even some small business owners. And so we identify some trends. There's a publication at the end that you can refer to. But essentially, is really the process of the challenging thing is the technology challenge regarding it's constantly changing, and also there are a lot of compatibility issues. And in addition, they also mention it's really important to conduct needs and ability assessment to be able to demonstrate the technology, allow people to trial the technology, which will gain buy-ins from these consumers. People don't know what they don't know, and also people needs to see it so they can actually really understand how they can actually utilize these technology. And so based on what we learned from ourselves with the user focus group and also the professional focus group I mentioned earlier, and the literatures out there, we actually currently have 2 research projects going on with Netherlands support. One of the projects that's listed at the first is ASSIST. So basically, we're trying to develop this process, as you see under here, and how we can actually assess, select, implement the technology, and then training the technology and follow up. So for here, we're really trying to do in a research setting to try to prove with this process, we can actually see benefit of this technology, really provide some scientific evidence to support the use of mainstream technology through this process. And we're especially working with people who are Medicaid beneficiaries receiving the home and community-based services in the community. And recently, we're awarded with this Nedler's Rehabilitation Engineering Research Center on wireless technology. In that project, the center project, we have one project actually looking into how we can expand this process into different real-world settings, including a university-based AT clinic, a regional like a center for independent living, and also a VA AT clinic. So we want to see like if we want to replicate this process, how we can actually replicate in these different settings, which involve a lot of like investigations of the funding policy world to understand who's doing what and who can be supported to do this kind of perform these kind of services. So we hope we'll report more back. With the first study, we already started the testing. And but during this process, we realized that the selection of these technology is really important. But without knowing how this technology works, it is hard to help people to select the right technology, and also hard to put a whole system together, make sure everything works cohesively. So that's why we proposed about a year and a half or even 2 years ago, proposed this topic, like to kind of trying to provide an educational session about how this technology works and how they work together. And I'd like to mention some related work. And so just like for the audience that you'd like to know more about the field. And there is a Smart Home on Wheel project with the New England Assistive Technology Center. And as you can see from the picture, basically it's a tiny house built on a trailer. So it has a lot of technology in the house. Basically, you can showcase all kinds of technology, but also has a lot of specialized AT for people to experience how they interact with the technology, and through these specialized eye gazing, like head control kind of devices. And another really important resource is that we is also one of our partners, and is the Pennsylvania Assistive Technology Foundation. They have a Smart Home Made Simple project. So this is from their project, this picture on the right corner, bottom corner. So basically they come up with, they're really trying to develop some guidelines for consumers. So basically their guideline is targeting directly to people with disabilities. And they just recently launched a comprehensive guide for consumers to use smart home technology, and also like checklist. And this is also an interactive website I've taken from their website. So you can actually click different kind of type of devices and to understand their use, especially the use cases for people with disabilities. So they have real world case scenarios and to talk about how these technology are helping people with disabilities. And Silicon Lab has a virtual home, as you see on the top right corner. And those are actually, the Silicon Lab is an industry they are basically is a tech company, and but they developed this virtual home, allow the people who are interested in technology to explore the smart home. So basically you can click anywhere and to understand the technology aspect of this technology. And so if anyone interested on the tech side, and that would be a good reference place. And we actually recently also developed this smart home demo station that is part of our service delivery process. So allow our OTs and rehab engineers to take this to people's home to really we don't need any setup time to be able to allow people to try different kind of ecosystems, to be able to try different device features, and then to practice some sort of skills. And so really becomes a really handy tool for this service delivery process. But in this presentation, I would like, as I mentioned, I would like to talk a little bit more about how we can support the education part of understanding of how these technology are used together and also individually. So I'm going to start with this slides that showing you the smart home system, how the smart home system works. And so I think a lot of the audience probably are familiar with the HAT model, the Human Activity Assistive Technology model, that's used to define a lot of assistive technology. So we'd like you to think about a smart home system as a piece of AT, and in this HAT model. So it's not just the device, it's not just the smart light bulbs or plugs or doorbells and door locks. it actually has a whole system here you have to consider. And first is the input devices. And these are the input devices actually has two components, the human technology interface. That's the only place that you would be interacting with the technology. And then there's an automatic part because there's a lot of sensors, there's a time-based event and sensor-based event. So you can actually really make them smart. And without users' input, and everything could be predefined based on time, based on technology, based on event, based on like sensors, based on event. And after that, this information needs to pass to a processor unit. And so that processor will be able to translate the input and then pass it to the devices. So the processor unit is really key here. It's almost like the brain of the smart home technology. And so I'll start to talk a little bit about the processor part, and I will pass to my colleague to talk about the other two components. So I'd like to start with some terminology so to get us all on the same page. So the first one is ecosystem. We always talk about ecosystem, and then you probably heard from the news or from the all the YouTube videos or on the blogs, people talk about ecosystem. And ecosystem in the processor part is really just referring to, it's more like a software level processors. And the most common ecosystem would be Apple Home, Google Home, and Alexa, like Amazon Alexa or Samsung Smart Thing. So these ecosystem basically they can actually take in all the devices, like different kind of smart home devices from different manufacturers, and so they can kind of put them together under one software platform. And there's also the narrow, these are very common like ecosystem, but also like there's also ecosystem like the Philips Hue, like you probably learned this on the smart light bulb. Philips Hue is actually is also ecosystem, but it's not widely as these ecosystem I listed here because they only really work with Philips Hue's product. But Philips Hue has sensors, not only the light bulbs also have sensors and other products, so they can all work together. But these platform I listed here, they actually work with all the brands. And the other, on the software level, you have these processors, but on the hardware level, you also have these processors, which we always refer as hub. Sometimes we would call that bridge or router. This router is not your Wi-Fi router in the home. It's more like the hub, bridge, and router, and it really helps to connect devices on the hardware level, so the device can talk to each other. And so I'd like to also mention that there's a communication protocol that can link these ecosystems and hubs together so they can function together. And for the communication protocol, there's a network level, hardware level protocol. And you probably have heard there's a lot of standards right now. There's a Zigbee, ZigBee, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, Thread. So these are the 5 very common standards at the hardware level, how the device communicate. For example, if you have a smartphone and then you have a light bulb, and if they speak the same language, if they all speak Wi-Fi, then they can talk to each other. And we know our phone can speak Wi-Fi, and the light bulb, there's Wi-Fi light bulbs out there. So if they're all talking into using Wi-Fi language, so they can talk to each other. However, sometimes the light bulb is not using Wi-Fi protocol. They may use a Zigbee protocol. In that case, your phone cannot talk to the Zigbee light bulb because the phone doesn't have Zigbee protocol in it. So it cannot directly talk to a Zigbee light bulb. What it can do is go through a hub and to talk to the light bulb. So this is the hub, at the hardware level is translate the signals. And so basically the hub has the Zigbee protocol. It can talk to a Zigbee light bulb. The hub also has Wi-Fi, so it can talk to your phone. So in this way, the hub connects the light bulb with your phone, so now you can control it. So that's basically you see 2 different types of communication here. And so this hub essentially is connecting all these non-Wi-Fi based devices back to the Wi-Fi network. So then you can use your phone to control it, you can use your voice to control it. And this hub could be a dedicated, just a small device in your home, and it doesn't do anything, it just translates the signals. And it could be a multifunctional device like the Echo, like the Amazon Echo actually has a Zigbee hub built into it, the newer ones. The older ones doesn't, but the newer one has a Zigbee hub built into it. So it's not only a hub that can connect your non-Wi-Fi devices to your phone, but also it's a smart speaker. It can do a lot of other things. So that's what we see like the dedicated hub or multifunctional hub. So these are the terminologies here, and at the application level, and there's also supposed to be standard. So, but right now there's no good standard out there, and it's emerging, but the standard is not there. That's why these ecosystems are so fragmented, and something work with Apple, they don't work with Alexa. Something work with Google, it doesn't work with Samsung Smart Thing. Because at the software level, there's no standard to unify these ecosystems. But that's going to be changing, like with the new standard. I'll talk a little bit later. Just a little bit more information about the network protocol, the hardware level protocol. I mentioned there are like Wi-Fi, Zigbee, ZigBee, and Thread. So I separate them into two places. You can see on the left side is Wi-Fi, on the right side is the other protocols together, because they are very different. The Wi-Fi protocol, they are high power consumption. So basically, it's only suitable for device that you plug in. You may find some devices use Wi-Fi, but that doesn't require plug-in, which means you have to. It's like some of the doorbells, they rely on Wi-Fi, and then you have to change the battery all the time. And so it's really like a suitable for these plug-in devices like smart bulbs and smart switches and the smart plugs, because it always has power. And also, like I mentioned earlier in that graph, it doesn't need a hub, so you can directly communicate with your phone and with the smart speakers. But Wi-Fi does has different band like the frequencies, and they're 2.4G and 5G, and now you have 6G and 6E, and so they're different versions. A lot of the smart home devices on the market, they're still 2.4G, and if your home is having 5G, then it may be really hard for you to get these Wi-Fi devices on your home network because they only work on the 2.4G. So that maybe sometimes when you buy a Wi-Fi devices, it didn't really pair it up well. It could be one of the reasons because it only supports 2.4G and then your home is now on 5G. And so that's the Wi-Fi system, and all the other protocol here, they're low power consumption. So they're really suitable for the battery power devices, sensors, and sometimes you have seen a lot like the door, the smart locks, and using this too, because there's nowhere you can plug in. So it's battery powered, and so they use these protocols, but they do require a hub and to connect to the Wi-Fi network, like I mentioned earlier, because your phone doesn't speak Wi-Fi, and these are not speaking Wi-Fi, so you need a hub to connect them. And they also have like the signature mesh network. So means like whenever you have more devices, you have more Zigbee, ZigBee, or Thread devices, the network will get better. You have a better range, and you have more reliability. With more devices join the network, you get better reliability here. But that's the total opposite with Wi-Fi. With more devices on the Wi-Fi network, it's only slow down your Wi-Fi. And especially the new one I'd like to mention, Thread, is an IP-based protocol, which means it has like the devices will have an IP address. And so it makes the device to device and device to cloud communication much easier. So you should see more like Thread-based protocol devices on the market. Like from now on, they're still minority at this moment, but it will be coming up very soon. And on the software level, I said on application level, there's no standard. That's why there's a fragmented ecosystem here, but this is going to be changed. And so we don't know what would be, the change will be happening like very soon, or like it's gradually. So it's probably gonna take like a year or something for us to see a really like substantial change with the product line. And so this protocol called Matter protocol. So this protocol is actually an overall protocol, not only defined at the hardware level, but also defined at the software level. So it basically says, according to this protocol, the battery powered devices will be communicate via Thread. And then the plug-in device will communicate with Wi-Fi. And these Wi-Fi devices will also have Thread protocol built in, so it can serve as a router or like a hub for these Thread protocol devices to communicate back to the Wi-Fi network. So it's really like the Thread and Wi-Fi going to be the future protocol that the devices will be using under this new like Matter standard. And so here is a small picture showing you like this kind of how it works. So these the border like these circles are not like a filled up circles. They are representing these Thread devices. So they are basically the battery powered devices. In order to bring them back to the Wi-Fi network, you need to connect them with a Wi-Fi device that also has the thread chip. And so they can actually serve as a hub and to bring these devices back to here. We have done some testing to see, like, for example, these 3 devices are connected to one Wi-Fi hub, and this one device is connected to this Wi-Fi hub. And then if this Wi-Fi hub, like somehow you unplug it, it's no longer working. And this devices is still gonna work because it's automatically configured to connect to the next available Wi-Fi hub. So this whole network is kind of self-healing. So it's supposed to be more reliable, like with the new product implementing this protocol. And this protocol also mentioned that the Bluetooth will be strictly used for pairing the devices. And so all the devices will use the Bluetooth to pairing the device. And then on the software level, they also define a standard. So which means like if everybody implementing this, then your devices should work with Amazon, Google, Apple, and Samsung Smart Things. So basically every device works with every ecosystem. So that's what we want to see in the future. And that's supposed to coming up very soon. And because all the major brands like manufacturers, Apple, Samsung, Amazon, Google, they all signed on for this Matter protocol like standard. And it's supposed to release like this summer, but we're probably going to see some graduate change. Some product already has the Matter protocol and built in, but it's very rare at this moment on the market. But down the road, maybe in the summer or towards the Christmas time, we'll see more of these changes. The last part I want to mention about the protocol is about this processor is about local and cloud control. Because a lot of times we wonder like, if my internet is not good, can I use smart home technology? A lot of people has the perception that if my internet is not good, I cannot use smart home technology. But it's not necessarily so, especially with this changing like standards, and there might be a big change for this as well. So I'd like to show you, like, this is a house, and if you have a smartphone and you have a light bulb, and if they all talk through Wi-Fi, then they can actually talk to each other without going out of your house. And so theoretically, you don't really need internet. You can actually just have them communicate. But the problem is right now, because there's no standard, when the manufacturer implementing these technology, they implement it this way. They basically have this phone to send the signal to the cloud, and then from the cloud back to the device. In this case, you have to have internet. If you don't have internet, there's no way you reach to that cloud. And so then means like, even though they're on Wi-Fi, you still need internet connection. And so basically local control, as you can see, everything is not going out of the house. So it's really, you don't have to have a lot of concerns on data security and privacy because everything is inside your house. But with cloud control, there's an increased risk of data security and privacy. And also like, but there's a good side too. If you have your phone outside your home, you can still control your devices if you have internet, if you have cloud control. So basically it would be this pathway from your phone to the cloud and back to the device. So that's a good part of the cloud control. And so this is a Wi-Fi based protocol. So what if you have like Thread or Zigbee? So in this case, and your light bulb will talk to the hub using Zigbee and Thread, and then your phone will talk to the hub using Wi-Fi. So basically everything is still within the house. But the problem right now is these hubs are implemented in a way like this. So it has to go through the hub's cloud and come back to the device. So you would need internet. And speaking of those voice control, it's the same thing. The voice control first, the command goes to the voice cloud. And from the voice cloud goes to the device cloud and then come down to this. So almost if you want the voice control, you have to go through internet. But things are also changing too. Because a lot of you probably may not know, like Amazon actually has a local support for voice command, including some of the like smart home command. And if you have a Zigbee or devices, you can actually directly use Samsung using this smart speaker, Amazon smart speaker, to locally control that without going through the internet. So things are changing even with the voice command field, voice speaker, like voice assistant field. So you don't necessarily have to go through the cloud. but this is actually just emerging. It's not really changing. Even Siri with iOS 15, you can do a lot of local processing with voice command, but not for smartphone for now. But these are changing, like I mentioned, with the Matter protocol, they will be having more regulation at the ecosystem level. So eventually for Matter and everything should be able to communicate locally. And just like the Apple HomeKit right now, if you want to integrate your device with Apple HomeKit, it has to be integrated locally with Apple HomeKit. So which means Apple HomeKit is the only one right now allow you to do local control. But down the road with the Matter protocol, all these ecosystems might be able to do local control. So even you don't have good internet services in your home, you can still enjoy the local control like with your smart devices. So the next part is the input device. I'll pass it to my colleague Lindsey to talk about that.
Hello, my name is Lindsey Morris. I work at the University of Pittsburgh and on the Assist Smart Home project, and I'm an occupational therapist. So for this section, we're going to go a little bit more into the different input devices that can be utilized to control smart home technology and what different characteristics will help you find the best match or fit for each client's needs and abilities. So just to kind of go over the components that make up an input device, the main form is a human technology interface. So this includes the actual hardware input control device, which in relation to smart home technology might be a smart speaker, display, smartphone, tablet, or wearable, or and/or a joystick, switch, sip and puff, any type of assistive technology device that would be used in conjunction with a smartphone, tablet, or wearable. Next, you're going to have the selection set and method. So the set would be either the smart home ecosystems app or voice commands that are coming from a digital assistant if you're using a smart speaker or display to control the devices by voice. The methods are either direct or indirect. So a lot of the apps give you opportunities to group your devices by rooms in your home, the type of device that it is. So in that sense, you would have to go through multiple clicks to get to your final option, but also there are direct methods that you can like pin your favorites on your homepage for touch. For voice control, it's primarily direct. The voice assistants are getting a little better at giving you corrective options if you say the wrong command. But the specificity of commands has been something that in our work with persons with disabilities in using smart home technology and from our provider surveys, we've heard can be a little bit challenging. So later on, we'll talk about a couple different ways that you might be able to address that as well. Lastly, you want to consider the feedback methods, how a person knows that their response has been received and that their action has been completed. So this can be a combination of visual, auditory, or both feedback indicators. Aside from just the human technology interface, there's also the automated technology interface, and this is where you can set conditional routines or automation settings based on time, locations, sensors, and you can also have these be activated by like a single push button, or and/or in combination with the use of the sensor devices. And some of the different types of sensor devices that you might see are motion sensors, temperature, humidity, contact sensors to know if like a door has been left open or not, and water sensors. So this was mentioned previously, but I just kind of want to focus in on the assessment technology selection components of our assessment process. So some of the key things that you want to keep into consideration when you're determining the best input device to allow your client to control their smart home technology in the assessment component is their needs in regards to what task they will be utilizing the smart home technology within, their functional abilities, their motor skills, cognitive, visual, and speech functions, the influence of the context or the environment in which they'll be using the device. Are they living alone? Will other people also be in the home? Will other people also be using the device? And then any different contextual changes that might come based on what tasks they're using the device for. And then lastly, their technology experience. So have they utilized smart home technology before? Even if they haven't, another big one is what type of smartphone do they currently use, or if they even have experience using a smartphone. The smartphone use experience can be really helpful because the two major operating systems for smartphones, iOS and Android, both directly link with two of the ecosystems, the Apple HomeKit and the Google Assistant. So there are some consistencies in regards to the layout and just ways that you interact with their devices that would be familiar to those smart phones as well. That could help the transition of learning a new technology. And then once you take all these factors into consideration, you would go into the technology selection process where you would try to match the device functions to the client's needs and abilities, and then trial them with the client to see which one they're most comfortable with, and utilize that in conjunction with shared decision making to make your final decision of what devices you would recommend. So we're going to go through some of the different main device types and control methods that are available for them. So when it comes to smart speakers and displays, on the left side, you can see a couple of the different speakers and displays available from the Amazon ecosystem, Apple HomePod Mini, and the Google Assistant or Nest Hub devices. So you can use voice control that connects to a digital assistant up in the cloud, as Dee Dee previously mentioned. To control your smart home devices with this, you'll need to enable skills on the Alexa platform or actions on the Google platform to be able to control that device. And you'll do that within the digital assistants app or the home app, they're combined kind of. For Apple, it automatically pairs and there's nothing additional that you need to enable. And by doing this, this is what allows the system to recognize the different specific voice commands that would allow you to control your devices. Siri and Google are able to communicate in 20 different languages and dialects, while Alexa is currently available in English or Spanish. Additionally, you can use touch control on smart displays. So smart displays are any device that has a screen, and some smart displays also have a camera. So you can use these for video calls as well. When it comes to accessibility functions that are available on smart speakers and displays that might benefit your clients and help support their use, smart speakers have additional visual or audible alerts that you can enable. So such as you can see on these Amazon devices and on the HomePod Mini, it lights up at the top to indicate when it's listening to you. And you can also have it make a sound to know that it's listening to you, and then another end sound once you've finished your command and it's no longer listening. They also can use some of those light indicators to let you know when you have like a notification waiting, such as like on the Amazon device, you can receive, or on Amazon and HomePod, you can receive notifications of messages. On Amazon, you can also get notifications on packages you might have, and those could also be indicated by a different color on the top part. Additionally, HomePod Mini has tactile listening activation, so different gesture tap sequences you can use to control the device rather than just voice input, and that supports the touch accommodation settings that are available in the Apple accessibility menu on your smartphone as well. For smart displays, some of the most common accessibility features that you'll see are closed captioning, screen readers, audio descriptions, color inversion, for color correctors and screen magnifiers. Some additional features that are available on some devices, but not all, include preferred speaking rate, which allows the rate of speech that the assistant talks in to be increased or lowered. Adaptive listening, which allows more time for the user to provide their response or input, which can be really helpful for individuals with speech impairments. Tap functions for creating shortcut tap commands, aside from the standard things that might be available in the smart home menus on the displays. And real-time text, which will allow you to interact with the voice assistant through typing your message rather than voice. For smartphones and tablets, there are multiple different operation methods available. You can use touch control to control the device utilizing the Ecosystems app. You can use voice control to control the device through a digital assistant. When it comes to Amazon, that's Alexa's built within their smart home app. Google Assistant is also built in the Google Assistant app, or it may be available on certain Android phones natively. Siri is built into any Apple phone and is only able to be accessed on Apple devices. Additionally, you can use voice control or voice access, which are within a Android or iOS devices standard accessibility settings, and this allows you it's structured very similar to switch control, but instead of providing different click inputs, you provide different voice commands to select specific buttons or targets on a screen. Lastly, assistive technology devices are compatible with more and more Android and iOS devices nowadays. So if you pair those different input methods such as switch, joysticks, sip and puffs, mouse, trackballs, and others to the device in the devices to the smartphone in the smartphone's accessibility settings, it should be able to control those apps as well. When it comes to ecosystem app accessibility, we did an assessment and found that all of the three major ecosystems support full iOS or Android accessibility control, meaning that the apps are compliant with the native accessibility functions built into the devices, smartphone devices. And they met the WCAG 2.1 AA standard. However, some of the individual brand apps are not as robustly designed or supportive as much of the device smartphone accessibility functions. When it comes to some customization options that are available in ecosystem apps but aren't specifically marketed as an accessibility tool, however, can still enable accessibility for persons with disabilities. The favorite screen will allow you to pin on your first page the devices that you use most frequently. The background color is changeable within HomeKit. And then both HomeKit, Google Home, and Amazon Alexa allow grouping by rooms and the type of devices that are being controlled. Additionally, there are third-party control panel apps that provide a little bit more customization. However, these can be time-consuming sometimes to set up because of all of the integrations, and the reliability of the integrations working consistently after can sometimes waver a little. However, if the interface within the native ecosystem app isn't meeting your client's needs, they might be worthwhile to explore. Lastly, we just want to mention that device or smart digital assistants can also be built into devices and enable controls that way. So a lot of smart home devices themselves have started building Alexa into the device, such as the Echo Bee thermostat, this CO2 and smoke detector, and then a lot of wearable devices like the Fitbit line. A lot of smart TVs, Google and Android devices will have Google Assistant built in. And then all all Apple or iOS devices will have Siri built in. Additionally, smart home devices can be controlled through an AAC device that enables either touch or eye gaze control methods. There are smart home specific boards that a lot of the AAC manufacturers have started creating, and these are templates which will allow the AAC device to provide a voice command to a smart speaker or display. There are also AAC apps for tablets that have smart home or environmental control panels built within them as well. And then lastly, aside from the human interaction method of input of providing the input command, there's also the use of automations. These can be customized within the smart home ecosystems app and can simplify environmental control. And some of the most common triggers utilized can be time, location, sensors. And again, you can also have a group of like multiple commands initiated by like a single button, physical or within an app. And I'm going to pass it off to my colleague.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alex Aurier. I'm a research assistant with the Department of Rehab Science and Technology here at FIT. So I'm going to be talking about the output devices and how this kind of all plays into benchmarking usability. So first up, before we really get to the output devices, it's important to mention that environmental and user considerations for picking devices. So first of all, like the user's home is a huge factor in what kind of devices can be selected. First and foremost, whether they rent or own is a big deal. If they own their home, it's a lot easier to install permanent devices and you know, change structures and things like that, because we have to get permission of the owner of the home. If the user's renting, then we have to get written approval through the landlord, and it can be a longer process. So you may consider more temporary devices in that case. The floor plan of the house is also very important. Especially if it's like an open concept or more individual rooms, or depending on like what the walls are made of. If you have brick walls, signal might not travel as well. In an open concept, a single large smart speaker in the middle might work well, but more closed off, you might need a series of smart devices to kind of bridge that gap. Also, whether you live in the city, in the suburbs, or out in the country, like that makes a difference, because signal reliability does change in those different places. The user's current technology use, as Lindsey mentioned, is very important. If they use an Android phone, there's no point in recommending them HomeKit devices, because they literally can't access some interfaces are simpler than others, easier to use. There's no reason to provide a more complicated, extra featured interface for somebody who doesn't need or able to really control that. Use of mobility devices and communication devices is also important to recognize, because if they use their joystick or something to control their phone, that even though all apps would support it, it needs to be accounted for before devices are picked. And the same thing with communication devices, that does feed into what we would recommend. And then for network considerations, both internally in your home, the location of where your router is in the house. If you have more than one access point to provide Wi-Fi to your house, is important, because you know there could be dead zones, areas where signal isn't as reliable, and we need to know that, because if we're going to put Wi-Fi devices, that's very important. External network considerations is basically through your internet service provider, what kind of internet speeds, what kind of plan you pay for. Both for wired speeds and wireless. That could be as little as a few megabytes per second of upload and download, or as much as gigabytes. Also, the cell reception could be important. If you're not using Wi-Fi on your phone, if you're using cellular data, it's important to know what kind of signal you have, and if you're going to be able to reliably control your devices. So just a quick overview. There's a lot of device types. This is just kind of some of the big categories. Smart light bulbs are probably the one you're most familiar with. They've been around about 10 years now, and they've just become incredibly ubiquitous on the market, coming in a variety of shapes, sizes, colors, everything. Smart plugs are also very common. You're able to individually control light switches or outlets within your home. Smart thermostats have gained popularity with learning your habits and automatically adjusting your temperatures to save you money. Smart cameras are a much cheaper and easier solution to home monitoring than previously available options. Smart vacuums are able to automatically map your home and figure everything out. Smart blinds allow you to open and close your window treatments from anywhere in the world. Same thing with curtains. Smart TVs have become very common. Pretty much you can't really buy a regular TV anymore. It's only smart TVs. And then smart locks and doorbells provide you easy ways to control or to let people in and out of your home without even needing to go to the door. So we're going to be breaking down devices by the functional goal they accomplish. So first up, we're going to tackle home entry. The biggest category in home entry is smart locks. These can be retrofit, where they attach over top of the lock you currently have, or permanent, fully replacing the entire module. So in order to, these all can be rekeyed, so there's still the opportunity to stay with the same keys you have. And depending on what you want, there's a variety of features available. Some have keyholes that remain. A lot include keypads and fingerprint readers, and also NFC cards and phone control are always available. Phone control especially, you can control your lock from anywhere. Residential automatic door openers can also be installed. The two most common options being an Open Sesame Model 133 and OLED Auto Swing Door. These are remote controllable, which can be made smart using smart buttons. Most commonly, these are installed on exterior doors, but they can also be put on interior doors. And then for those with garages, if you already have an electric garage door opener, you can make it smart by including a Wi-Fi bridge or replace it altogether with a brand new smart garage door. But these are mostly just designed for standard sectional style garage doors, so important to note. Next up, kind of similar to home entry, is handling visitors. Again, smart locks is a huge part of this. Everything I said before holds true still, but the big thing with handling visitors is smart doorbells. So these are able to be installed through the wiring if you already have a doorbell, or battery options are available to add a doorbell into your home easily. They provide one-way video feed of whatever's going on at your front door, and two-way audio. So if someone rings your doorbell, you're able to pull up the feed, see who it is, and you can even talk to them. And then if there's someone who needs to be let into your home for any reason, you're able to then unlock the door and they can come on in. So now, probably the most complicated category in smart home, lighting. You wouldn't think so, but there's so many options and ways to do things that it really does get quite complicated. So first up is smart light bulbs. They come in two main styles, the plain white or RGB, so they can go from cool to warm, all the whites, or basically any color in the world. They're all easily dimmable, and they're very easy to install. You just unscrew your light bulb that you currently have, screw in the new one, and then pair it to your system. Unfortunately, they do have a finite life, and once the light dies, that's it for the bulb. There's no repairing it. No, you have to just replace it and start over. This makes them good for like low volume. If you only have like a lamp or two to convert, or if you're renting, it's easy to throw these in and then just store the old light bulbs. And then if you move out, just replace them with the original bulbs. But then in a more permanent space, there's these permanent smart switches. There's two main forms of smart switches, the permanent and the retrofit. Permanent switches are really only recommended for those who own their homes because they're somewhat difficult to install, requires a little bit of know-how. You have to turn off the breaker panel for that circuit, unwire the existing switch, wire in the new one, and then turn the power back on, make sure it's all right. These are, however, the most featured devices. They most come with dimming. They can also be installed in single light switch applications or 3-pole options, like in a hallway where you need where you have multiple switches to control the same circuit. These have an infinite life because they are hardwired into the wall. They don't die like a light bulb would. And then on the retrofit options, these are the least featured, but they are very cheap and very easy to install. They screw directly over the existing switch. There's no wiring to deal with. It's just screw it in and it's ready to go. However, they do have a finite life again. They run on batteries that must be replaced, and they don't offer features like dimming. And then finally, the smart plugs. Like I said earlier, these control a single outlet. They're very easy to install. They go between the plug and the outlet. They're great for lamps and like small appliances, and most come with a physical button on top that allows them to be controlled physically as well. Next up is the climate control devices. So obviously smart thermostats. These are able to learn your patterns and adjust your temperatures accordingly to help you save energy and save money as well. They use the existing wiring of your current thermostat. So you need to check and make sure that it's compatible before you would go purchasing it. Next, smart heaters and humidifiers, things like that are starting to come onto the market that you're able to control with your phone. But also if you have older appliances, you can make them smart using smart plugs or smart buttons. Smart ceiling fans are also a device type that's starting to grow. These fans can be purchased that directly integrate into these ecosystems, but also if you have somewhat new ones that use remotes, you're able to control them. You can pair them with an IR bridge and then control them with your phone once that's been set up. Then for window control, obviously we have the window treatments, which come in two main forms, permanent and retrofit, similar to the light switches. So permanent smart blinds come with a motor inside them already and ready to be hooked up to an ecosystem. And they require full replacement of the existing blind, where retrofit curtain openers and blind openers attach to existing curtains and blinds and are able to add the smart functionality to them. Smart windows is a pretty niche market, but it's one that's growing. Basically, it comes with an actuator that's able to open and close the windows for you. So next, in terms of some ADLs that can be accomplished with smart technology, first off, bed mobility. Electric bed frames have been around for a while, but now they're starting to natively support voice control. And then ones that don't natively support it can be brought into the smart space using stuff we talked about earlier, like smart buttons and IR sensors. In terms of bathing, smart shower controllers are starting to become available. Basically, once installed, you're able to control the water pressure and the temperature of your shower using your voice or a control panel on the wall. They're very easy to adjust things. In terms of grooming, smart faucets have been becoming mainstream. These are able to be controlled similarly to the smart shower heads with gestures or voice control. And then automatic soap and toothpaste dispensers have also been popping up on the market. Then finally, for toileting, retrofit bidets are becoming pretty common. They install very easily and quickly on existing toilets. Now for some IADLs that can be accomplished with smart home technology. First, smart cameras, able to easily home monitor for a low cost. These are most commonly hardwired because they use Wi-Fi for signal, but some battery cameras do exist. They can even be set up to automatically record what's going on in case it senses motion. Smart sensors and alarms are also becoming very common. There's sensors like door and window sensors can tell you when a door is opened or closed. Motion sensors can automatically turn on lights when you walk into the hallway. And then also smart smoke and carbon monoxide alarms are able to not only alert you in the home that something's wrong, but also automatically call for emergency assistance. Smart vacuums and mops are able to automatically map your home without you having to do anything, and they can routinely clean and make sure everything's fine. Some of the newer models even include self-emptying tanks and are able to switch how they're cleaning based on the floor type to support both mopping and vacuuming. Then smart buttons and plugs, as I mentioned earlier, can control small appliances. A coffee maker that's set up ready to go can then just be triggered with a smart button. And then for the final device type is leisure devices. Like I said, smart TVs is pretty much the only type of TVs available, but it's not your only option. You don't have to replace your TV. There's many retrofit options for smart TVs like Chromecasts, Fire TVs, and Apple TV devices, which connect your TV to the internet and also allow it to be voice controlled. So now for a quick overview of how we conducted usability testing. We used 4 testing principles and 3 testing categories. Our principles were learnability, which is a measure of all functions of the device that are easily learned. Efficiency is if the user meets the intended goal of the device in a reasonable amount of time. Minimal frustration. Reliability is a product, system or service that will perform its intended function adequately for a specified period of time or will operate in a defined environment without failure. And ease of use makes explicit the idea that the device must be simple to use on a regular basis, involving as few steps as possible to accomplish the goal. So each device was scored using the chart on the right you see for each category for device installation and connection and overall device functionality using a Likert scale, meaning 1, we didn't like it at all, and 5, meaning they really liked it. This process compares 3 devices at a time that can be expanded as necessary. So For benchmarking, we basically created charts that show all the different features. This is a smaller one, and then this is a more robust chart comparing a couple devices at a time. And then finally, just to kind of quickly go over our device selection process, we go over all our user guides and then compile a list, and that's it. All right, thank you, and have time for questions even? Okay, thank you very much. That concludes our presentation. Yeah.